Hey, what's up, guys? BSG Trek Fan 88 here. As many of you know who are subscribers to me or friends of mine should know at least, and if you're new to my channel here, I am a budding photographer. I love to take photos of sunsets, sunrises, astrophotography, but one of my favorite things to do is take pictures of famous buildings or objects or at museums. I'm a huge fan of history. Unfortunately, my brain, if you will, I can't remember everything. I'm not one of the people that says, oh, I love history, and then they remember everything. I have a general understanding. I have a general knowledge basis. I have maybe 50 or so books on certain subjects, but if there is one place that you could pick to go for 2 to 4 days that you would be able to not only photograph, stand in, be part of, or just look at history, it is our nation's capital, Washington, D.C. There's a lot of politics involved with Washington, D.C., but I honestly am neutral and could get into a discussion, but I'm not going to. That's not what this video is about. When you go to Washington, D.C., the moment you step out of Reagan International Airport, and go to the National Mall, you are literally surrounded by historical landmarks, buildings, museums, Smithsonian Institute. I mean, the list goes on. I mean, for someone like me who not only loves the architecture of Washington, D.C., but history in general, I mean, good God, the first time I went there, I was literally just overwhelmed by, by history. I mean, I'm the kind of guy that when I walk around D.C. and I visit the museums and the buildings and landmarks, I don't just think of the landmarks and the buildings that are there. I think of who stood there before me, famous presidents, senators, politicians, etc. I think of the history that was made in such a spot. And of course, for the monuments that are built for wars and people, I of course think about, those people who came before me. But it's just such a wonderful place to visit when it comes to photography and history and all that stuff that really, really appeals to me. I love going there. I've been there twice. These pictures that you're seeing, I believe, are from my second trip. Maybe I'll throw in a few from my previous trip. But there's something about DC. The first time I went there, I said the same thing, and I figured, okay, it's just because it's the first time, I'm overwhelmed. Because you really are overwhelmed. I mean, you can go to New York City, you can go to Boston, you can go to California, and yeah, if you're a movie buff or a history buff, you go to these places, and it's awesome. But I mean, I said it before, literally, you are walking in the footsteps of history. You are surrounded by what? I mean, you have the Washington Monument, you have the Capitol Building, the White House. I hit something in my mouth there, sorry. The Smithsonian, the Lincoln Memorial. I mean, there's so many places and historical elements going on in the same, 10 square miles. It's insane. And even for someone like me, who I've always thought, I'm the kind of guy that, stays kind of cool under pressure and thinks things through, and I don't panic easily, if you will. Excuse me, that's a bad example, but you get the idea. There's just so much going on. I mean, both times that I have been to DC, it's literally like, where do I go now? What do I do? Do I go to the Air and Space Museum? Do I go to the, Museum of Natural History? I mean, there's just so much to do. If you're going to DC, either by yourself or a family trip, literally, I mean, you can do it in 3 days, but 5 days is my personal suggestion for minimal. And that's arriving and departing on, one of those days, both those days. Getting there day 1, day 2, day 3, day 45. Of course, me being a space nut, being a science fiction fan, the Air and Space Museum is just absolutely amazing. I mean, if you have seen my From the Earth to the Moon, or in fact listened to my From the Earth to the Moon soundtrack that I have basically created, to actually go and see a limb, you know, a limb, a spider, and almost be able to touch it after watching and appreciating and, you know, falling in love with the idea of this machine, this craft that would allow humankind to land on the moon. I mean, that's insane. And then, of course, you go over to, you know, the National Archives, and you see the Constitution, you see the Declaration of Independence, which I got those pictures illegally, technically, but we'll move on from that. You know, people, when you mention Washington D.C. or D.C. or WDC, you know, people automatically go to the politics. I don't care about that. I am going to appreciate the art and the history of this great area. I mean, it really is unique. I'm of the personal belief that, you know, the District of Columbia, Washington, D.C., the National Mall, whatever you want to call it, is probably one of the most unique, if not the most unique places on the face of the earth when it comes to the amount of history and preservation and my vocabulary can't, you get where I'm going here. I mean, you can go to one museum or Smithsonian and learn about our own American past, and you can go to the next museum and learn about, you know, the Museum of Natural History, you know, the history of the Earth. I mean, it's just insane. And then you take a 5 to 10 minute walk, and boom, you're at the White House, the seat, well, not the seat of government, but the home of the President of the United States. I mean, you have the National Archives, you have the Smithsonian, you have the Capitol building, my favorite building in DC, just because, based on its design. I mean, there's so much to do and learn and love about going to our nation's capital. And if it's not your country, if you're from overseas, you know, regardless of the politics involved, regardless of who you wanted to win or, you know, world events, I personally think that the backdrop of all of this, which is the National Mall and surrounding areas, it doesn't matter. I mean, you walk around DC and it's just amazing. And as I kind of touched on before, you have this feeling as you're walking around. The words can't describe it. You know, the movie buff in me thinks, oh, you know, such and such movie was filmed here. You know, when Forrest Gump said, Jenny! You know, when he's giving his speech about Vietnam, and that's all he has to say about that. You know, it's one of those things where there's so much around you. It really is overwhelming, and I can't wait to go back this January. I will be honest, the second time I went back, the places that I went to, you know, I went to the first time, so it's kind of like, all right, let's go, come on, I want to go, you know. And of course, being the budding photographer that I am, not a professional at all, but, you know, someone who appreciates photography and does stop to look at the whole picture and not just take pictures with his phone. Ugh, I can't stand that. Buy a camera, not just your phone. You know, both times that I went to DC, you know, the first time, you're overwhelmed, period. You know, the second time, I kind of knew I still to this day know the lay of the land. I know where places in certain buildings are. I swear to God, I looked at DC both times more through the viewfinder of my camera than I did with my own eyes. And that's mainly because I knew in the back of my head that I had a time restraint, that I really, you know, needed to get the ball rolling and get some pictures of this great area, great place, than anything else. I think the third time I go, I'm going to have a vlog camera. I'm going to have a point and shoot from Canon that will take 1080p video that I'll be able to talk to you and take video with really quickly. And then I'll have my camera, and I'm going to try and get some more shots. But it's one of those things where, excuse me, everywhere I go, every place that I see, I try and take really good photos. And I think that shows in the pictures that you see here before you, in this video that I'm talking to you with. And it's very hard for me to not take pictures. I really wish I just the 2 times I went beforehand, I really wish I just shut my camera off and just take in the moment. And I did a couple of times, but I wish I did it more than I didn't do. But anyway, this video has gone on a little bit longer than I wanted to. It's a narrative, so sorry. What do you think? Have you been to DC as a foreigner, as a a citizen of this country? And again, leave politics out of this. It doesn't matter, and I think you understand why it doesn't matter. But I just love going to DC. There's never a dull moment. There's never a place or building that just doesn't have history to it. But it's one of my most favorite places that I've been to in my 24, almost 25 years on this earth so far. And I really look forward to going back and taking some more pictures and talking to you in the future. This is BSG Trek Fan 88 here, signing out. Have a good night, guys. See ya.